This sounds impossible. Two boys from the same neighborhood, once pretending to play Champions League during school breaks, ended up facing each other in a real Champions League classic, and then brought their whole neighborhood to watch it happen. On one side, Ousmane Dembele. On the other, Dayot Upamecano, PSG against Bayern. But underneath the lights, this was not really Paris against Munich. This was La Madeleine watching two of its own stand on opposite sides of history. Before Paris, before Munich, before the spotlight, there was La Madeleine, the neighborhood in Évreux where both stories began. Not the version that appears in headlines, but the one kids actually know. Tower blocks, schoolyards, community pitches, and long afternoons where football filled the space between everything else. That was the world that shaped Ousmane Dembele and Dayot Upamecano. Same neighborhood, same schools, even the same class. And their connection went deeper than the neighborhood. Both grew up in Senegalese families, carrying the same African roots into the same streets that shaped them. Long before Europe saw elite players, La Madeleine saw two boys growing up under the same gray skies, chasing the same game in the same corners of town. And that is what makes this story feel different. They are not just linked by France, or by one youth system, or by a lucky coincidence. They are linked by memory, by routine, by the place that taught them how to compete, how to dream, and how to carry themselves. When you play with your friends, it's an adventure, Dembele said. In Évreux, everyone comes together. African, Turkish, everyone's happy. That's what makes it special. Even years later, on the edge of a Champions League semi-final, they made sure home was still part of the picture, arranging tickets and travel so people from their neighborhood could live the night with them. Even in the same neighborhood, they did not play football the same way. Dembele looked like the kid the game just flowed through. Street football shaped him. Tight spaces shaped him. Uneven ground shaped him. His old coach once described him as a pure talent who learned to beat obstacles by playing outside, the kind of boy who always seemed to have a ball at his feet. Upamecano was different. His game was forged in rougher lessons, cage matches, hard tackles, no referee, no excuses. He has said those games taught him not to let teammates down, to fight through pain, and to treat the team as bigger than himself. One boy learned how to escape pressure. The other learned how to crush it. Same streets, same beginnings, completely different football personalities. Are you enjoying this video? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content on African heroes just like this. What are the chances that two classmates who once pretended to play Champions League during school breaks would one day face each other on the real biggest stage? What makes this story special is how close the beginning really was. This was not two future stars growing up somewhere in the same city and never really knowing each other. They were in the same neighborhood, in the same schools, even in the same class. They trained in the same local football world, shared the same routines, and saw each other long before fame changed the scale of their lives. That changes the meaning of this match. Because when Dembele looks across and sees Upamecano, he is not just seeing Bayern's center back. And when Upamecano looks back, he is not just seeing Paris's danger man. They are both seeing a piece of home standing on the other side. At some point, childhood stops feeling endless. The games get faster, the coaches get louder, the good players stop blending into the crowd. And that is when football started choosing for them. Dembele left the world he knew for Rennes in 2010, following the kind of path reserved for boys whose talent could no longer stay local. Upamecano's road bent a different way. After those early years around Évreux, he kept climbing through FC Prey and then Valenciennes, where the game began treating him less like a kid and more like a future professional. That is the first real separation in this story. Same beginning, But now the road narrows, and each step forward pulls them a little further apart. Rennes was where Dembele stopped being just a local wonder and became something the rest of France had to take seriously. He had left Évreux young, but this was the moment the gamble started paying off. After tearing through the academy, he signed his first professional contract in October 2015. A month later, he made his League One debut. Not long after that, he scored his first goal for the first team. And once he got moving, it happened fast. What made Rennes so important was not just that it gave him a platform, it gave him proof. Proof that the kid from La Madeleine could survive outside his own world and still look different. Rennes was the first chapter where Dembele's talent stopped feeling local and started feeling dangerous. Upamecano's climb did not feel like Dembele's. It was less about flair, more about force. Less about sudden magic, more about being sharpened step by step. After leaving the Évreux area, he kept rising through FC Pré and then Valenciennes, where his potential stopped looking local and started looking serious. But the real break came early. He began his professional career at Red Bull Salzburg, arriving there at just 16 and moving faster than most players his age were supposed to. From there, the road only got steeper. Salzburg gave him a higher level, a harder environment, and a clearer identity. He was no longer just a talented kid with physical gifts. He was becoming a defender built for elite football, one challenge at a time. This was the point where their story stopped belonging only to their old neighborhood and started belonging to Europe. For Dembele, that moment came at Dortmund. He arrived in Germany and exploded almost instantly. The talent that looked wild and playful in France suddenly had a bigger stage, and somehow it looked even more dangerous there. He finished that season with 10 goals in 50 appearances, won the German Cup, and left with the feeling that everybody now understood what he could become. Upamecano's breakthrough felt different, but just as important. At Leipzig, he was not there to entertain. He was there to survive, impose himself, and grow into one of the most exciting young defenders in Europe. Alongside Ibrahima Konate, he became part of a powerhouse defense, young, aggressive, and built to scare attackers before they even reached the box. Pundits described him as a revelation after his move from Salzburg, and that word fits. This was where his power, speed, and authority started turning potential into reputation. Same beginning. But now both of them were breaking through in their own way, on their own terms. Breakthrough is one thing. Proving you belong at the very top is something else. For Dembele, that test was Barcelona. After Dortmund, the talent was no longer a secret. Now it had a price tag, pressure, and a level of expectation that can swallow players whole. A boy from La Madeleine had become, at that moment, the second most expensive transfer in football history, a deal worth 148 million euros. Now playing with Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. Across 6 seasons there, he showed flashes of the brilliance everyone had seen coming, winning titles and producing moments that reminded people why he had been chased so hard in the first place. And even while his Barcelona years became complicated, he still reached something most players only dream about. In 2018, he became a World Cup winner with France, lifting the biggest trophy in football before his career had even fully settled. Upamecano's giant test came at Bayern. He arrived in 2021 for 43 million euros, stepping into a club where defenders are not judged only on talent, but on authority, calm, and consistency. At clubs like Barcelona and Bayern, potential stops protecting you. Every mistake feels louder. Every good performance raises the standard again. That is what makes this stage of their story so important. Both had reached the mountain. Now, they had to stay there. But reaching the top did not make life easier. It made everything heavier. For Dembele, the pressure was no longer about talent. Everyone already knew he had that. The real question was whether he could turn chaos into consistency, stay fit, and become someone his team could truly depend on. After 6 years at Barcelona, the boy who once cost 148 million euros left for only 50 million. Not because the magic was gone, but because the doubt had become louder than the excitement. PSG did not just give him a new shirt, they gave him a new chance to prove that the story was not over. For Upamecano, the challenge was different. At Bayern, raw power was no longer enough. He had to become calmer, sharper, more grown in his decisions, because at that level, a defender is not remembered for 9 perfect tackles if the 10th mistake leads to a goal. Injuries interrupted rhythm. Mistakes got replayed. Confidence got tested in public. And at clubs fighting for everything, patience is always short. That is what makes this part of their journey so important. Not the applause, but the strain. Not the hype, but the weight that comes after it. Because this is where both players had to become more than gifted. They had to become reliable. And now, years after sharing classrooms and pitches in La Madeleine, both of them have become exactly what elite football demands. Dembele is no longer just the unpredictable talent people kept waiting on. He is one of the faces of PSG, a Ballon d'Or winner, and one of the men who helped the club finally win the Champions League. Dayot saw his friend receiving the Ballon d'Or with his own eyes and said in an interview, "Honestly, I don't have the words. We all knew he would become a great player. But still, when I saw him lift the Ballon d'Or, it brought tears to my eyes." And maybe what makes their story even more unreal is that this was not the first time they had reached the biggest stage together. In 2022, both boys from La Madeleine started a World Cup final for France. They stood on the same side that night against Argentina, close enough to the ultimate dream to almost touch it. But after one of the wildest finals football has ever seen, France lost on penalties, and the moment slipped away. That is what gives this meeting its weight. This is not two gifted boys crossing paths again. It is two careers fulfilled, two different versions of greatness, and one more night that makes the road from La Madeleine feel almost unreal. Maybe the most emotional part of this story is that they did not leave La Madeleine behind. For one night, the neighborhood came with them. Not in spirit. For real. Dembele and Upamecano arranged tickets, covered the travel, and made sure people from back home could live this night up close. Families from their streets made the trip, entered the stadium, took their seats, and watched the Champions League semi-final not through a screen, but with their own eyes. They also spent time with the fans who had known them from the beginning. That is what gives this story its soul. For people from places like that, nights like this can feel very far away. But this time, the distance disappeared. Two boys made it to Europe's biggest stage and brought their neighborhood with them. Before the game, Upamecano said, "Ousmane is my friend. When the whistle blows, we won't be friends anymore. He's a great striker, a Ballon d'Or winner. I know how he plays." And yet, once the whistle goes, all of that has to disappear. The shared classroom, the same streets, the same neighborhood watching from the stands, none of it can help now. Dembele becomes the problem Upamecano has to stop. Upamecano becomes the wall Dembele has to break. And what followed was not just a match, it was chaos, theater, and Champions League football at its wildest. 9 goals, momentum swinging from one side to the other, and a 5-4 night that felt almost too dramatic for the people from La Madeleine watching in the stands. And then came the kind of moment that made the whole story feel unreal. Dembele running at Upamecano, the game almost slowing down around them. A duel they must have lived 100 times before on schoolyards and neighborhood pitches, now happening for real under Champions League lights. Upamecano stayed with him, read him, knew the danger, and came out of that battle like a winner. But Dembele still left his mark on the night, scoring twice and helping Paris win the match. As if the night was written for them, Dembele and Upamecano both scored. Two boys from the same streets, writing their names into the same Champions League thriller. After the game, Upamecano said, "This was my toughest game since I joined Bayern Munich. Dembele was moving like lightning, it's crazy." That is the tension at the heart of this story. Not hatred, not revenge. Something rarer than that. Two boys who know exactly where the other comes from, forced by football's biggest stage to stand in each other's way. And maybe that is the most powerful image of all. The old neighborhood is not just watching a winger against a defender, it is watching proof. Proof that the same streets can raise two different kinds of greatness. One became flair, risk, and imagination. The other became strength, control, and resistance. But both came from the same place, and both carried that place all the way to the top. From the same classroom to the Champions League stage, their story still feels unreal. Two boys from the same streets made it to the top, then looked back and made sure their neighborhood could be part of it too. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content.